Good morning and welcome back. After nearly 2 months of repairs, the West Point treatment plant in North Seattle finally back to full operations.
Yeah, back in February, remember this? Heavy rains flooding the treatment plant, shutting down critical systems, causing untreated sewage to pour into Puget Sound.
Now, officials said they were able to repair enough of the systems to run the plant at a limited capacity, but yesterday was when they reported all equipment is now up and running.
The next step is to make sure the repaired equipment is stable so that nothing like this happens again. But just this morning, the Seattle Times publishing a huge investigation into how all of this happened on its website and is going to be the front page of the Sunday edition of the newspaper. Reporter Linda V. Mapes is here. You're helping us preview this story. You're the investigative reporter on all of this. You dug through 7,000 documents, interviewed countless people. Can you give us kind of the high level? It sounds like a series of errors here.
Sure. Good morning. Thanks for having me on the show. And I did this with my colleague, Christine Wilmson, at the paper, and all my other colleagues throughout the newsroom. This was a big team effort, and we were at it for weeks and weeks and weeks. And you know, what we found was surprising to us in the sense that it was really a very simple device, a float switch, no more complicated than what's at the back of your toilet, costs about $200. That was one of the key problems in this disaster. There were 8 of them. They had been installed in 1996, and they had been causing problems at this plant time and time and time again, dating back at least to 2000, and very similar problems to what happened on the night of February 9th. Sticking, jamming, not functioning, such that this critical piece of equipment that is supposed to protect the plant from flooding failed. And workers, operators at the plant were counting on it to work. And when it didn't, the plant flooded with some 15 million gallons of untreated wastewater. But that was just one of the things that went wrong that night. Communication was just in an absolute state of breakdown. Workers who were trying to manage this disaster thought that the operator in the control room knew the flooding was happening. They actually did not tell him. So he doesn't even know this is going on until they finally stumble and race back to the control room after this flood has been going on for about a half an hour. And by that time, it's way too late. And so the communication breakdown was intense. There's a training issue here, too. I mean, this mantra of do not bypass, and what I mean by that of don't open the emergency gate to literally bypass untreated waste to Puget Sound, that's there to protect the environment, and that is important, but it is not the only value. We also have the region's largest critical piece of infrastructure at stake. I mean, we cannot live here in a city next to Puget Sound without functioning wastewater treatment, and this is the largest plant in the region, the largest of its type on the West Coast. And to lose the plant like this for so many months, you know, we're talking about February 9th until yesterday, the 27th of April.
It's a long time.
That winds up doing a lot more environmental damage than a brief one-time bypass. And so there's a culture around this that needs to shift, and these workers need to be supported to make that decision in the moment. And right now, you know, they're fined, they're criticized, they're questioned, they're grilled, and not only that, but let's ask ourselves, so why didn't anybody replace this switch a long time ago?
Fix the toilet.
Yeah.
Fix the darn thing. Well, you know, this again is this culture of, you know, make it last, make it work, be thrifty, be, you know, ingenious about working with what you've got, and that's very admirable. But man, oh man, to cause an estimated $25 million in damage because of this like $200 piece of equipment is just really hard to face. So, you know, I feel for the workers. They're deeply committed to clean water. That's why they're in this industry.
Well, you say it's sheer luck that no one was hurt or killed.
Boy,
is that true?
That is really terrifying. I was over at the plant yesterday. They gave a tour, and I want to get back to that. But there's this slot on the floor that is covered with a cover that had been forced off by the force of the flood. It is a 16-foot deep tank, and this operator and trainee, she'd only been on the job for a little more than a month, falls in this tank because, of course, it's covered with this brown rushing water. She doesn't even know there's a hole she's about to fall into. And she sort of catches herself, and one of her colleagues helps her up and away. But I mean, she's in shock. She's injured, and it could have been so much more serious.
I imagine scenes from Titanic, the movie. I mean, honestly, without over-exaggerating.
I know, and there are tunnels that were flooded all the way to the ceiling, 12 feet high. And if there had been people in those tunnels, there's no question that we would have lost lives. And so this was a very, very serious event and could have been so much worse. And so we just really hope that people will pay attention to the coverage and take very seriously this plant that we have to protect, take care of, and value, because it is why we can live here.
So you were there yesterday. Lots of media. Did you see changes being made?
Yes, there have been a lot of things done since that flood. Cleaning, replacement, repair, really a heroic effort to get this very large, very complicated plant back on its feet. But I want to be clear that this is a limited recovery at this point. There are two issues in wastewater treatment. One is mechanical, lots and lots of different pumps and motors and processes and systems. The other is biological. This is secondary treatment, and these are actually microbes that eat the material that's left in the water after all that mechanical process. It's a little bit like you after you've come back from an illness. Do you instantly start eating the Big Hero sandwich, the double cheeseburger?
No. I have, and it's not,
right.
It's not bright.
No, you're on the clear chicken broth for a while.
Yes.
Well, that's what's going on with these microbes. They're not ready to take the full load at this point. So these so-called digesters that are the last step in the chain, which reduce the amount of solids and purify them, they can only take about half the action right now. And so what are we doing with all the rest of that material, which, by the way, is still going there every day, hour after hour? If you live in Seattle, all the way up to Lake Forest Park, down to Duwamish, that's where it's going. And we don't even think about this. We flush the toilet, we send stuff down the sink, and we just, walk away. Well, there are people who have to deal with all that, and there's a plant that we built 50 years ago that's been taking care of it for us. But right now, it is still not back all the way to action because these microbes can't quite get it done yet, but they are recovering. So right now, half that waste is being handled in the usual way, but the other half still has to go somewhere. So we are spending between $700 and $1,100 a load to truck it on tanker trucks. This is sludge through Magnolia all the way to Renton, where the South plant is treating it, but we can't even manage it only with trucks. There's so much sludge that has to be processed. So what's left over that the digesters can't handle, that we can't get enough trucks to even manage, is going into Puget Sound. So we still are not meeting permit. There is a state water quality permit that requires the water to be a certain level of clean when it is discharged to the Sound, and we are not there yet. We won't be there for weeks, and that's if everything continues to progress in a good way with these microbes. So root for those bugs.
Yeah. Right.
Well, this is clearly just the tipping point. We encourage everyone to read more about this investigation. Again, it's online right now, seattletimes.com. It's going to be the front page of the print edition on Sunday. We're going to keep you here and tape an extra interview. I'm just going to be transparent about that you can watch this weekend on Q13 News this morning, Saturday and Sunday, so that we can get a little bit more into this, because I imagine there are a lot of people with questions.
Lots of questions.
Thank you so much, Linda.
Thank you.